Coming up on Mountain News this morning, nationwide protests against racial inequality make their way to eastern Kentucky. And as the chief of Kentucky's largest police department is fired after a deadly shooting on Sunday's protests.
Dedicated to eastern and southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Good morning, I'm Lacey Roberts, and thank you for joining us on Mountain News this morning. Today is Tuesday, June the 2nd, and those temperatures outside were pretty nice yesterday. Let's go ahead and bring in Brandon Robinson to see what we can expect for our weather today. Good morning, Brandon.
Good morning, Lacey. And we are going to see much warmer weather today, and we've seen a few clouds in the overnight hours, but again, nothing major going on. Maybe just a stray shower or two, but I think most of the moisture not reaching the ground this morning. Let's take a look at the satellite radar loop for the last little bit. So some folks will wake up with a cloud or two around, but they should clear out relatively quickly as we get deeper into the daytime hours. Temperatures much warmer than they were this time yesterday. Remember, a lot of folks were in the 40s yesterday morning, in the 50s and 60s this morning. Some of our cooler spots are down near the Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia borders there. 53 Harlan, Middlesboro, and 52 in Jonesville. I think it's 53 here at the house in Letcher County. So again, a little bit cooler in some spots this morning. Your out the door forecast, we are going to see temperatures climb into the mid to upper 80s today. It all depends on how much of that southwest wind we get and how fast it cranks it in here. But again, it's going to be a much warmer and a much more humid day as we head deeper into your Tuesday. Full forecast on the way here in just a little bit. Lacey.
Thank you, Brandon. Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher announced that the firing of the city's police chief came yesterday. That comes after the shooting that killed a popular owner of a barbecue restaurant early Monday morning. Family members said that David McTee was serving food when he was shot to death by Louisville Metro Police and the National Guard. Officers said that they were trying to disperse a nearby crowd when someone shot at them, so they returned fire. Mayor Fisher says the officer involved in that shooting did not have their body cams on at the time, and that's against department's policy. Mayor Fisher called it, quote, an institutional failure. Family members say that McTee died trying to protest his niece, who was also struck by gunfire. The governor says that he'd hoped body cam video would have helped give more transparency to what happened yesterday, and he called the lack of footage, quote, unacceptable. And Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron responded last night to the death of Daniel McAtee, calling it, quote, incredibly difficult and a heartbreaking day for the black community. Cameron called for a stop to violence while investigators seek answers in McAtee's death. He went on to say, quote, you have my word, the truth will be known and the rule of law upheld. And a Louisville Metro officer was seen on camera firing pepper balls at a news reporter and photographer has been reassigned until an investigation is complete. The officer's name has not yet been released, and the pepper balls were fired directly at a Wave 3 news crew who were reporting on the protest Friday night. Wave's general manager said in a statement, quote, there is simply no justification for the Louisville police to wantonly open fire on any journalist on any circumstances, end quote. And an act of kindness out of Louisville as some of the protests began to turn violent over the weekend. Protester Darren Lee was trying to make his way home when he spotted an officer who was separated from his squad. Lee saw that he seemed lost and nervous as a crowd gathered around the man, so Lee and several other strangers linked arms, protecting the officer from the crowd.
I think he learned at that point not all protesters or not all black people are bad people. We don't all have a hate for the police. We just want to see change. We just want to see justice.
The group was able to escort the officer unharmed back to his squad. Lee said the officer thanked them for their efforts. And as anger over the divide between police and the African-American community boils over into violence across parts of the country, people here in the mountains are making their voices heard. Several peaceful protests are taking place across the southeastern Kentucky this week. And last night, organizers in Paintsville put together a peaceful Black Lives Matter protest. A crowd of more than 50 people marched around a city block chanting things like "Hands up, don't shoot," and "I can't breathe," hoping to bring light to racial injustices and show that there is still work that needs to be done.
In a personal phase, I'm quite afraid. People have messaged me, saying really scary things to me. And I just think we can't sit here and be afraid of it. We can't sit here and say we're going to let them tell us what to do, because that is what we've done now for hundreds of years, and it's time we do something, and we're not going to let fear rule us. So we're here to make our voices heard.
The protest stayed completely peaceful and was done by 7:15. And last night in Pikeville, people gathered at the city park for a peaceful rally for grief, empowerment, and anti-racist transformation. People gathered to share stories, learn about racism, and grieve the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many others. The event organizers are asked people to follow social distancing, spread out throughout the park, and bring signs in their support. Police even joined the event, wanting to stand with the people. Organizer William Wheeler hopes this ignites fire in people to want to see change in this country.
Just white people in general should speak up against racism, because it's going to happen. And if you know someone that's doing it, speak out behind closed doors, because we can't do it ourselves.
We want to be down there for the people, and they got a right to say what they want to say, and that's the way what America's based on. So we just want to do it peacefully and have a great gathering down there with them and let them get their part done, and we'll go right on with everyday functions.
The event lasted around 2 hours and remained peaceful the entire time. Another protest also happened last night downtown in Corbin. It started at 6 o'clock at the Sanders Park, and the group organizing the demonstration demanded that protesters remain peaceful. And some people in Harlan County also plan to gather tonight at 4 p.m. The peaceful protest will take place on the bypass strip above Huddle House. Organizers say it is to raise some small town awareness of deaths of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and Ahmaud Arbery. Organizers say that masks are mandatory. Well, thank you for getting your day started with us here on Mountain News this morning. Coming up, yesterday marked one of the new Atlantic hurricane seasons, but we're already on track to break meteorological records.
And I hope you like heat and humidity, because it's on the way back today. We'll talk about it in about 3 minutes.